Like 90s.
I think Xbox One is coming out. Well, enjoy your trip. Take pictures, post them.
I will. Oh, I will. Are you a graphic designer? Do you know graphic designers? There's one of the local papers is looking for somebody. And I was just gonna pass it on if you knew anybody.
I can ask Eileen.
It's just like a side hustle or something.
Okay. I'll ask around.
She was like, it's only like 5 hours.
Well, I didn't know with that if you filled out.
Yeah.
It just sounded like if I had time, I would do it.
Yeah.
But if you have
You
any
have a big
friends,
enough room.
Yep, I'll ask.
We'll put you at the far end.
First time I've been in the office.
If not, let me know if not.
I'll hold my schedule, but if I don't,
You're good.
I didn't need it. It was my first time at a party.
Take all of that.
that's far enough away where they don't have they usually default to you.
First, I want to apologize to folks for keeping you here. We usually get started right at 4, and we will try to get through our business expeditiously. We're going to start with a roll call, and then I'm going to ask everybody who's a guest here to introduce themselves, and we'll get right into our business meeting. So let's go ahead.
Ms. Banks? Mr. Arnold?
Here.
Ms. Bell? Here. Mr. Brown? Ms. Carter? Here. Ms. Clark? Ms. Friedman? Here. Reverend Gordon?
Here.
Ms. Harding? Here. Ms. Howe? Here. Ms. Mendoza-Locke? Mr. Knowles? Mr. O'Connor? Ms. Rodriguez? Here. Mr. Stengel? Major White? Ms. White? Here.
Great. Thank you. We have a quorum, so let's get going. Richard, can we start with you and go across the back row and then back, please?
My name's Richard Arnold.
Your name? Your name? Yours? Your name?
Arturo.
Joanna. Annette.
Manuel Zapata.
Your name?
Your name? Pedro. What is your name?
Pedro. And your name?
Emilio.
My name is Linda Parra. I'm nuestra gente.
Thank you.
Lane Savansky, CJCC.
Bettina Lason, board staff. Dave Kellner, board staff.
Paul Lewis Recovery Council and Board of Trustees, St. Paul Community Center.
Latrice Flowers, board staff. Amy Perkmeyer, board staff.
Robert Kasperzak, Board Staff.
Phil?
Phil Stone, board staff.
Elijah Jones, board staff.
Michael Carter, Board Staff.
Great, thank you all. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of our last Planning and Oversight Committee meeting, May 2nd? Is there a motion to approve?
Size. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Jenny, Treasurer's Report.
The statement of revenue expenditures for April is on page 8 of your packet. We received the levy rollback portion for April. In our financial statements for fiscal year 23, we have received all of our levy revenue for the year. And you can see on the levy revenue line, we're actually only $6,300 off of our budget for the year, for the fiscal year to date. And that will be all that we will receive for this fiscal year. We also received our quarterly Ohio Moss allocations in our federal revenue and our state revenue in April. And then you can still see we have a variance in our federal revenue of $1.5 million in our fiscal year to date, and that is still for SOAR SOT funds, and that's just because of it's still a lag from when we got a slow start from the grant starting in September and until now. But you can see, and when you look at our payments on pages 9 and 10, we actually had over $700,000 of payments for SOAR go out in the month of April. So it's just a little bit of time that it's just taking to catch up on those payments coming through. And then for the month of April, because it was not a main grant payment month, we actually had semi-small amounts of expenditures for the month, and we had an increase in net assets of $313,000. On the balance sheet on page 7, as I mentioned, we received our levy rollback revenue and we received our quarterly Ohio Moss allocations, and that was just offset by the payments that we had going out in cash. And then you can see in deferred revenue, we had an increase there, and that was Ohio Moss funds that came in that we haven't spent or earned yet. And then our non-designated board fund balance increased $318,000 to 19.7 million. There are payments on pages 9 through 10, and there is a motion on page 6.
Any questions for Jenny? Jenny, I appreciate your comment that the SOAR expenditures seem to be picking up. Obviously, the opioid crisis hadn't gone away, but do I understand what your comments correctly, that it's likely to continue to be underspent through the end of this fiscal year?
Not necessarily. So there's a combination of two things in there. So because the SOAR funds ran on a federal fiscal year, the first federal fiscal year that ended in September had true underspending. So that will have underspending that we see reflected at the end of our fiscal year because it was underspent through September. The second portion that started in September is just lagging because of timing. That one, we are not trending underspent.
All right, thanks, that's helpful. Any other questions for Jenny?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the financial report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? The motion carries. Scott, civil commitment.
Thank you, everybody. I draw your attention to page 11. Civil commitment designation and designation of pre-screeners and attorneys. We do this annually. According to revised code, we must designate entities responsible for completing voluntary and involuntary admission evaluations, and also we are responsible for designating attorneys to present evidence sufficient to substantiate a need for involuntary commitments at a hearing. These designations are done on an annual basis. The past 5 years, the board has designated Carla B. Davis and Chelsea Meister to conduct the involuntary commitments. They have agreed to continue to do that for a cost of $16,000. The motion is in the middle and bottom of page 11, and we have communicated with each of these entities that are listed in section B of that motion, and they are willing to continue to be a designee for pre-screeners.
Okay, so the first motion is designating the agencies or facilities that will do the work, and the second is to retain these two lawyers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Any reason why we can't take them together?
Please do.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion in the middle of page, two motions that we can take together in the middle of page 11. Is there a motion?
I move for the acceptance of both motions.
Second by Ms. Howe. Any discussion? Any questions for Scott? I hope not, because he sounds terrible. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
I'll get a sympathy vote.
All right. Jenny, I think you have the capital allocation for the Zeph Center, the crisis care.
I do. That's on page 11. You might remember back in April of 2021, you designated $2 million of undesignated funds to be used for capital improvements necessary to carry out recommendations from the CPES report. And also in 2021, Zeph Center began providing emergency crisis services for Lucas County. And in order to do that, Zeph had to reorganize some of their staff flows and service flows in their Ashland location. And when Zeph began doing the services, they also began longer-term facility planning as part of that conversation. And we know that Zeph has been working with TBD Solutions, and TBD Solutions also got them in touch with additional consultants that helped them evaluate their building needs and their service delivery needs and processes, so they can decide how the building should flow with the new services they're providing, and what kind of things are actually necessary. They took the consultant's recommendations and began working with local architects and general contractors and came up with a construction plan and budget. Excuse me, sorry. And presented this to board staff and requested $2,325,293.13 to renovate the Ashland location. And, excuse me, I'm sorry. This work would be done in 4 phases that would minimize service interruptions at their location. Board staff have reviewed the proposal and the budget that has been submitted and are in support of this request. You might also be aware that this project has been identified as a priority for the Ohio Moss Community Capital Fund, and there is $750,000 of those funds available for this project. The remaining then would be $1,575,293.13 that would be requested to come from the board designated funds. That would be to carry out the recommendations of the CPES report. The remaining funds in the board designated funds, board staff are proposing to keep as board designated for that purpose. There are 2 motions on page 12. The first one is to approve the allocation of the board designated funds of $1,575,293.13 to the ZEF Center. And then the second one is to approve the use of the Ohio Moss Community Capital Fund and agree to support the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jenny, just so the record's clear, I take it that the reference in the 3rd line of the description that starts at the bottom of page 11 was actually supposed to be July 1, 2022, when the ZEF Center began providing the crisis service?
Yes, that was a typo.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions, any other questions for Jenny?
It would be July 21.
Oh, 21.
21. It's been 2 years.
Okay, you're right, yeah, dang. That went fast, okay. Let's take these separately because it may be important to Ohio Moss that we have a separate resolution approving the acceptance of their money. So, do we have a motion for the first proposed resolution in the middle of page 12?
Second.
All right, and this resolution would be the allocation of $1,575,293 for the capital improvement project from the funds that have been set aside for that purpose. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries. The second motion in connection with this project is the to accept the $750,000 in community capital funds from the from Ohio Moss to allocate that to the ZEF Center's capital improvement project and to monitor it and so forth. Do we have a motion there? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, Elijah, I think you have the next one, the Latinx navigation prevention allocations.
Yes, thank you. So in February of this year, we issued a RFI to the Sophia Quintero Arts and Cultural Center and the Belief Center for a collaborative proposal to provide bilingual and bicultural navigation and prevention programming for the Latino community. We received that proposal at the end of last month, May 31st. Sophia Quintero has proposed to provide after-school prevention programming using the evidence-based curriculum Too Good for Drugs, and a mix of some other in-school programming as well. And the Belief Center has proposed to provide navigation services with a full-time navigator and an after-school program using the same curriculum Too Good for Drugs. While I think it's important to note that These are still really in the development stages. We just received the proposal, so there is some clarity we'll be working on with each program specifically. But I think we have enough information where we're comfortable after reviewing the proposals and having some meetings to move forward with helping them to develop these programs. Both agencies are applying for Ohio MHRSB certification, so this motion has noted, the motions on page 13 have noted that the funding is really pending that they receive that certification for these services.
I have a question. Did you say they were as a collaboration?
Yeah, so they're doing two different programmings, but they're collaborating through an implementation team where both agencies are going to work collaboratively together to implement these programs.
Any other questions or comments for Elijah? We'll have open session at the end of our meeting, ma'am, so everybody will have a chance to say what they need to at the end, okay? We have an open session on the agenda. We'll get to that. I think we can take these together,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So we have a motion to take accept the two resolutions in the top third of page 13.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, Scott, I think you have the ARPA funds.
I do. Thank you. Draw your attention to pages 13, 14, and 15. At our last meeting, we approved the first round of ARPA funds for the cycle 1 of the mental wellness and community grants, domestic violence treatment, and Latinx prevention navigation services. At that time, I told you we would come back to you all in June to allocate the remainder of those funds for years 1 and 2 and provide a little bit more input into what the plan currently is. So the first thing I'd like to mention is we are asking you to allocate year 2, so it would be cycles 2 and 3 community wellness, mental wellness community grants. That amount is equal to $300,000. It is the similar motion to what was previously approved last month, so it's modeled after that motion, with the exception that I did not ask for the board match for that because you'd already approved that in our administrative budget. So then we draw our attention to the mental wellness rapid response team, and the mental wellness and response team actually has 2 components to it. The first component is the development of a treatment locator app. It's called Local Help Now. Ascend Technologies has worked with 4 different community organizations over the last several years, 4 boards over the last several years to create a treatment locator app for those communities. We had been working on developing a proposal to bring to you all regarding bringing that application here. The City of Toledo ARPA funds gave us an opportunity to fund that project, so we embedded it in the City of Toledo ARPA funds request. It will, the treatment locator app will allow anybody in the community to identify any Ohio MHRSB treatment or prevention or support service. It will help identify where to get crisis services. We're working on some health equity related goals into the app, and it will be very useful in the community for individuals who may not know where to go, but want to do a little more research before they actually make a selection. And again, it'll be every community mental health, substance use treatment, provider, prevention, treatment, and support services. So all 76 organizations. That is the first component of the rapid response team, and it's an important component of that team because what we find is when there are tragedies in our community, traumas in our community, that we will get a call from the community saying, hey, can you send somebody out into the community to help us process this? We have done that on an informal basis. So actually Amy Priest gets the calls and we organize a team and we look for volunteers and we send that team out for several days, just helping whoever shows up at the door there to process. We're there usually 2 to 3 days, but it could be longer. Sometimes we show up, the day after, and then a couple days later, as people kind of come to grips with, hey, I might need to talk to somebody about this stuff. A part of that is helping them identify if they need additional care, which is why it's so nicely connected to the treatment locator app. But what we want to do with this is formalize that team using a intervention model called NOVA, is it? And we have community members that are trained. We've not worked out all the details with the selected provider yet, but it'll be a provider that has EAP experience because that's kind of the model that we're looking for. And
EAP stands for?
Employee Assistance Program. Think about your own EAPs if you have them, how that works. So they're not actually providing the care, they're actually helping people process and then linking with care in the community. The motion itself is $20,000 for the Ascend Technologies, and we did seek bids in the community, or we did seek up to 3 bids for that service before we selected Ascend. And the remainder $70,000 is for to establish the team, identify who can be a part of that team, provide additional training, and we envision this kind of being if you get deployed, then you would get some type of compensation for that. Because right now, if we pull from an agency, the agency isn't getting compensated for that. So they actually lose billable hours. And so which then creates this, this inability to have and staff a consistent team. So we want to institutionalize the process. The third thing that we're talking about is the Trauma and Grief Support Group capacity building. We're actually requesting funds for years 1 and 2, up to $120,000. And those folks, essentially that's what we're talking about, grief and trauma groups established in the community. They're peer-led. Good Grief is mentioned in here as a potential contractor for working with children who've experienced traumas and loss. They're already doing some of that work, and we want to expand some of their capacity. And also, we identified the group that has just started recently doing support groups in the community called, it's Parents of Murdered Children, Northwest Ohio chapter. They've actually started doing support groups in the community, and we want to provide them some additional support for ongoing operations, training, capacity building, and perhaps expand, beyond what they're currently doing. I've been aware of this group for a while. They've been around in our community, but they've just recently reinitiated their support groups process. So that motion is also included, and then I am asking that you allocate years 2 and 3 funding as it's defined in this grid on page 13 for Danny's Place, and that is a total of $330,000 for construction of Danny's Place. So you have motion starting on the bottom of page 14 and rolling through middle of 15, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Scott? There was a lot going on there, so feel free to
So this
clarify.
app would be available on the App Store?
So we use the term app because it's easier for people to cognitively understand, but actually everybody's getting away from apps. And what we want is, what we're doing is we're creating a web portal, so to speak, and then there will be a link that you'll be able to add onto your phone, so when you hit it, you actually come to a website versus an app. A lot of technical stuff that I don't understand related to that.
And
I'm
I
sure
just
there's
got used
people
to
who do.
apps, that's all I'm
Right.
saying.
So what it will do is it'll give us a lot
Functionally,
more
it's the same
flexibility. Right, functionally it'll look the same, but you won't have to worry about iPhone versus Android or any of that,
Okay.
because it'll drive you to the designated spot. And we'll be able to maintain it. So,
Yeah,
you know,
so it's gonna be completely customized to our community,
Yeah.
so I wanna look for, someone who speaks Spanish, or someone who speaks Arabic, or somebody who understands the Muslim culture, or whatever. Those are the kind of things I can search on
those are
there.
the things that we're working on related to health equity. So there's a framework for the application itself that those are our confines.
Right.
And then, so we purchase that framework, and then whatever we can do within the context of that framework is included. If we want to go beyond that framework, then we'll have to pay a little bit extra. But we
Okay.
believe we can get everything we need out of that framework.
Oh, okay,
And then there's an ongoing maintenance cost
correct,
as well.
yeah.
So how would they be aware that
Excellent point.
Yeah, how are we gonna get this in everybody's?
I'm gonna
hands?
ask you to hold that question to our next motions, because we're gonna address that very topic. We have a big campaign that we wanna run past you.
Oh, okay. That was gonna be mine.
Usually when there's a crisis, like a fire or something like that, you always hear the Red Cross shows up. So they're going to be given this information that they can contact, who they can contact.
So, part of our disaster planning is how do we interact with the Red Cross and, other people that show up in the door, and just general volunteers who just end up showing up. Our community is very gracious, right? And they just show up and say, hey, I wanna help. Well, part of our disaster planning is how do you manage that process? So we have protocols in place to do that. Where we normally get our calls is not from the Red Cross, it's from LMH, because we see a lot of these traumas happening, in those LMH-owned properties, where there's also a lot of witnesses around. And so it's helpful for us to go in and help everybody process that. But we will also make that available to communities and schools and, wherever it's available, wherever it's needed, really.
Parents of murdered children used to be very active, but I haven't heard much about them.
So I worked with Leslie Robinson, who used to be the chapter chair for a long time with the Toledo Initiative to Reduce Violence, TSERV is what it was called. And he was very active in there. He is not the current chair. Anise Hill, I believe, is the current chair. And I believe she's the one that's running the groups. They have been to many of the community meetings related to violence that I've been in, and that's where we first learned that they were actually doing some of the groups. It took us a while to figure out who it was and how to get in contact with her, but once we were, Elijah's reached out to them and is already scheduling meetings to talk about what we can do to support them.
Any other questions for Scott? I think we can take these together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Move.
All right, so we have a motion to approve all of the recommended resolutions, beginning on the bottom of page 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resolutions. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is there any further discussion of the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Well, Michael, Scott has teased your report, so let's see what you have to say about the campaign.
Well, I'm actually excited about this campaign. Many of you are a part of our Equity in Action plan as we've been going through our diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, access process of creating that plan. And now we get an opportunity to see that plan in action, right? And so that's where you get the Equity in Action Access Improvement campaign. And as Scott mentioned with this campaign, we get a chance to really promote the tool that's going to be available to every citizen in Lucas County to have an opportunity to be able to find access to services. And so we're looking to do a mailer, door-to-door, every door mailer campaign, and have a two-sided postcard with targeted messaging go to every home. And that postcard would also have a magnet connected to it. So it would be mailed with a magnet and a two-sided postcard with the information for the application tool, right? So that everyone will have access. And we're looking to do something pretty big that we really haven't done before, and that is mail this to every household in Lucas County. So this opportunity, will go to every household in Lucas County. We know today that a lot of people look at email as spam. We get a lot of email in a day, not as much house mail anymore. And here's an opportunity to make sure that this information, this critical information, makes it into every home. We have put out bids for it, and we came up with an organization that was able to do everything we needed with Magnet Mailer. They were the only organization that we were able to find that could give us the mailer and the two-sided postcard at a really reasonable price. And then we're utilizing the Every Door Mail campaign from the post office. So the postage is set. That's not something that we have anything to do with. They have a program. We fall into a slot because of where we align as government, and that's just what the pricing is. So we were able to get an organization, though, that would mail it for us. So we didn't have to take it to the post office, and we don't have to go every week with a certain batch. This organization is actually going to print and ship all of these to roughly about 186,000 households within Lucas County, residential households. So I want to make sure your businesses won't get them, but residential households within Lucas County, which will complement some of the other things we will do, of course, with our advertising. But this is just that extra step to make sure that it's within everyone's home. So the cost associated with it is pretty much $43,371 for the magnet and the mailer piece. And then the actual postage, which is set, is $34,038 for a total of $77,409. And there's a motion for your consideration up under it, and I can answer any questions.
So how many times will this mailing take place? Once every 2 years, 3 years?
We haven't gotten that far. Right now, this is our one shot to see how it goes, how we get it out there, and then do some of our other marketing and see what happens. And then I guess we'll reevaluate the effectiveness and what we're able to do to determine if it needs to be done again. But really partnering this with billboard, radio, and those type of things to see how it works.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How is it going to be measured?
How is it going to be measured? Well, one of the good things is they do have a dashboard, and so we'll be able to utilize that along with, we will be able to see how many downloads we have as well. So that's going to be really the measurement is usage. We can see usage from the app. Yeah, that usage data. And so as you see that usage rate go up, you will know that it's based upon the advertising that we have done.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're using a mailer because you hit on it. The spam is really like at an all-time high.
Right.
People don't pay attention to that anymore. But they are paying attention. When we did the rental assistance direct mail campaign, we were amazed at what it did. I mean, it literally drove 11,000 people.
Wow.
So this is good.
And this is the one campaign that we can do. We can't guarantee anything, right?
No.
But we can at least make sure we've touched every house. Or with everything else, we don't know if you saw the billboard. We don't know if you heard the commercial. But at least this way, we do know that at least went to the house. What happens from there is out of our control.
It went to somebody.
It went to somebody.
Okay.
And we're requesting the allocation using fiscal year '23 health equity funds.
Yes.
So that money's already been allocated, we're just asking approval for the contract.
Okay.
So it's not new money.
Pastor, did your question get answered?
Yes, it certainly did.
Any other questions or comments? We have the staff has proposed a motion that's in the middle of page 16. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Michael, you're up next with Credio.
Yes, this is our contract that we do with Credio. We have been doing it since fiscal year 2019. In 2018, you may remember that we did an RFP. Credio was selected from that RFP process to do our marketing, professional advertising services, and so we're requesting to enter into that contract with Credio once again. The funds have already been allocated, but this just is us having the permission to sign the contract with Credio for professional advertising, marketing services, as well as our live streaming. So those totals combined together are $96,400. And again, there's a motion there for your consideration.
Any questions for Michael on this? Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. All right, Phil, I think we're on to infrastructure transformation, starting on page 17.
Sounds good, and I'm only going to say that once since it's such a long acronym there. So Infrastructure Transformation Project, or ITP. This has been really a vision of the boards for quite some time, and it was really highlighted why we needed this during COVID. To be frank, we have been neglecting our own technology infrastructure for so long, and we just decommissioned a server not too long ago. We're down to one server. It's old, it's on its last leg, and we need to get up to industry standards in order to survive as an organization. So for that, to address that, we developed a 4-phase ITP to ensure that we as a board are capable of meeting our statutory requirements in addressing our community needs effectively. So back in April of 2022, we released an RFP in order to solicit organizations to help evaluate the board's business processes, technology infrastructure to support those processes, and to provide a set of actionable recommendations in order to go cloud-based. Ascend Innovations won the Phase 1 contract, and for Phase 2, it was really about making Phase 1 recommendations actionable. So we released Phase 2 in February of 2023. We received some bids that range from about $595,000 to $749,000. We developed a committee that included everybody from Phase 1, so that'd be 3 trustees, 1 former trustee, and 2 board staff to review the proposals, and we examined it for their content, format, methodology, etc. The top proposal came in, it was Ascend Innovations, and they have you heard their name just a minute ago. They have been developing apps for other boards. Well, they have their hands in a number of different projects for boards, and as well as hospital systems too. They're very well versed in data and data governance, which is a huge portion of the ITP. So again, the total cost for this project is not to exceed $749,633, including travel. They're down in Dayton, Ohio. And these funds were set aside last year. 1.2 million was set aside last year, so the 749,000 would come from the 1.2 million that was previously designated. Are there any questions? Hearing none, on page 18 there's a motion for your consideration.
David, do you have anything you'd like to add since you were on the committee?
I think the process for review of the proposals was extensive, and I think there was a consensus reached about it.
we went over once too, by quite some time, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
conversation.
Any further questions or comments about this motion? All right, the motion is at the top of page 18. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Elijah, you have the health officer designation this time?
Yes, this is an easy one. Our advisory group met and reviewed applications. We have 2 new applicants and 7 renewals. You can kind of see their information here. And then we are committed to continue to provide information on as we collect demographic information of our health officers, and we've updated the chart to reflect those new and renewals in there. So you can review that, and there is a motion on page, oh, there is the motion. Oh, there it is, it's on page 8. Yeah.
I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the recommended new and renewed health system officers. It's in the middle of page 18. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. Scott?
Okay, I have the last 2 items.
Yep.
Draw your attention to page 19, top, Home for Everyone Continuum of Care Board Member Appointment. Our homelessness board, which by the way I am a member of, has the responsibility of coordinating what we call a continuum of care group that makes up all the applicants for the HUD emergency shelter and rental assistance funding, rapid rehousing funding. Traditionally, the board itself has worked with the community and then created priorities and an application process, and then made the application and then prioritized and made the award. To keep things simple, what I want you to envision is the homelessness board simply turning that process of prioritization, selection, designation of who should be doing what to a community group that is now called Home for Everyone Continuum of Care. So there'll be an actual committee out there. There's essentially anybody that touches the homeless and housing services is invited to attend. And then there's an executive committee. In the development in which the community membership approved the bylaws, they designated this board as being able to appoint an individual to the board, which would automatically be on the executive committee. We're proposing, board staff is recommending that this board appoint Ms. Senna Murad Friedman to serve on that committee. Not just because she knows our system intricately, but she is well-versed in housing and is a fierce community advocate. Senna has indicated a willingness to serve, and the term will be for 3 years, commencing on July 1, 2023, and going through June 30th, 2026. And with Senna's newfound time not chairing this board, she'll have plenty of time to participate in that process. I'm going to stop there and give you any opportunity to say anything you'd like.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm very honored and privileged, and thank you, Scott, for your vote of confidence, and each of you as well. I met with Michael Hart and Candace Bishop of the homeless support staff to really, because they're the ones that really developed this governance committee, to find out more. And the thing that I'm excited about is it gives us an opportunity to bring more funds to the community by having this governance. So that was like, oh, okay, well, that's good. I like that, you know, and whatnot. And I look forward to just serving. You know, Liz will know me, so.
We have a motion from Ms. Hauser, a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion of the motion?
I would like to say I think that's a logical choice and a good choice.
Yeah. If we could do it, I mean, we don't have something called acclamation, but we probably should, yeah. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions, the motion carries. Scott, tell us about the new building.
Senna abstained, just so.
Oh, abstain, I'm sorry, yeah.
Just make a record of that. They didn't vote for myself.
You can, it's all right. It's all right. So today I hope to bring to you a full package of what our renovation costs would look like and what our costs would look like in relation to our rents. But we weren't able to get those numbers together for you. So I didn't want to let the opportunity pass to provide you an update on relocation to 333 North Summit with the full intention of bringing you those numbers at our June board meeting on the 20th. So you all know we've been working with the Commissioner's office to relocate to the 14th floor of the Summit building here. We originally provided some guidance on renovations that we wanted to see, and those renovations came in at $700,000, and we went, no, we're not doing that. And we went through a couple more steps and worked with the architect and engineer and interior design and the Commissioner's office, and I can tell you that we're somewhere around $240,000 now in renovations. And the majority of that is built around creating a larger conference room.
Does that mean we have to paint it or something?
We're gonna have a work party next Saturday, yeah.
What do you mean, we? You volunteered, so I'll buy the brushes. No.
You buy the donut.
Yeah. So the renovation costs are reasonable. It's something we can take out of our reserve, undesignated fund balance if we so desire, or we can work with the city to, or I'm sorry, the county to fund that and then pay for it over time. And that's really something that we haven't really discussed all that much yet. But the lease itself hasn't changed much from the last time. I think the county and the building owner, ProMedica, is still working out some of the little details. At our last meeting, there was a request that no matter what lease comes to us, we seek independent counsel in regards to that lease. So we've identified an individual that will approach to do that once I actually see a lease, and we'll get that done before I bring you a request to approve a lease. So we're committed to doing that. I'm very comfortable where the process is. I don't think the square footage cost will be much different than what we had already anticipated. Honestly, the hang-up is the general space. How to apportion the costs of the general space, because some of the first floor still isn't, they haven't apportioned that yet. So that impacts our costs. You know, we have a portion of the first floor, you know, for, general space, and then a portion of the 14th floor. The plan still is to share the 14th floor with the Guardianship Services Board. They have their own renovation costs, we have ours. It will meet all of our needs. I believe it's a very strong deal, and I'm looking forward to actually seeing the lease so that we can move forward. The cost will be pretty much all inclusive. They'll ready it for occupancy. They've already engaged an organization to move us. We haven't decided what we're going to move yet because it's furnished. It may not be furnished to what our actual needs are, but we'll have to go through and do all, see what we need, what we want to keep, what we want to bring, that kind of stuff. So we're pretty excited. As you can see, not much is happening in this building, so it's not a matter of if we should move, it's when, because staying here is not the option. So that's the update. I will provide you more specifics, and obviously that whatever we talk about at our June 20th meeting it won't be on the consent agenda, so it'll be
able to talk about it.
Right.
Do you think you'll have a lease by then?
I hope so, because they know what we're up against, right? So if we don't have the lease in time to get it approved in June, we don't have July meetings.
Right.
So then they're gonna have to evaluate if we wait till August, if that pushes our time frame back for moving, because we're still on pace to move before the beginning of the year. So, we've been told that we'll be first in the move and first in the renovations. And now that we've scaled back the renovations so much, that
It makes sense.
it'll be a lot, I think it'll be a lot quicker. So that's where we're at right now. Staff have been through it. They've enjoyed the place. I'm gonna work on getting all of you through there as well before June 20th. For a quick visit, just to walk through, just so you have an idea of what you might be purchasing.
All right, thank you, Scott. Okay, we are now in open session, and I'd like to start with the lady with the pink hat who was gracious enough to hold her comment until we got to this portion of our agenda, so please.
Thank you. My name is Ian Navarra, and I am president of Nuestra Gente Community Projects, a 501c3 Latino organization established since 2008. We've been doing social services since 2008, so it's not a start-off for us doing the services to the families that we had on Lucas County. As you see here, this is part of our families. This is a small group of the families that we're serving. We have more families. Some they cannot be here. I have to rent a van for today, so I will have to rent another one, and it costs about $300 something. So we try to stretch our budget, and also dads are working, and so not everybody can be here today. So as a nonprofit organization doing the social services already, and certified as a behavioral health navigator through OMAS already, we had a question in this special allocations of $225,000 for Sophia Quintero Center and $225,000 for Belly Center, which are organizations that are going to start social services. We've been doing it already for 15 years. So we had a question on this special assignment, and I'm kind of like confused. Is a $450,000 a year when the budget from ARPA money is $430,000 that on May 2nd were distributed to 3 agencies at Nuestra Gente, Belly Center, and Sophia Quintero. So we are kind of like confused in this proposal of $225,000 for 2 organizations that they are not certified, that they never had a social services, and also they are in the process of to be certified, when the policy is you must have to be certified in order to get funding, to be approved funding. And so on the policies, and I invite the board to check the policies of the board for staff, for the contractors. So I would like to get some information about those 2. We would like to, because we are all part of Nuestra Gente, and we are all working with Nuestra Gente, and those are the families that are getting the benefits. In order to provide benefits and help and services to families, funding is #1 priority. And that is why we want to get some clarifications about those special announcements, motions for 225,000 for Sofia Quintero and 225 for Bailey Center. And the other thing is that in February 23, the Mental Health Board issued a request for information to those two agencies. I printed out the agenda for February 23, and nothing here is mentioning about this request to those two agencies. This is the February agenda. So I went over it and I took a look. So why is saying here on February 23, the Mental Health Board issued a request to those two agencies for $225,000 each one, when the ARPA money is being already assignated for $430,000 to three agencies, Nuestra Gente, Bailey Center, and Sofia Quintero Center. Nuestra Gente will get on the first year from April 23 to June 24, Nuestra Gente will get $70,000, Sofia Quintero will get $80,000, and Bailey Center will get $80,000. So what is this change about $225,000 for each organization? Is this a new funding, or is, I got a question on that.
Would you like me to respond in
Yes.
writing, or should I respond now?
Well, if you can give a general response as to the process that got us to this point, and then if you prefer to do a response in writing, that'd be fine.
Certainly. Do you have any other questions before I begin?
Yeah, I do have more.
Well, then let's get them all on the table, because this isn't a back and forth discussion.
Okay. So, on May 2nd, on the agenda for May 2nd is when it was approved, the funding for the three agencies. Here it is. It's on item number 9 on the May 2nd. So if you go and take a look at your minutes when you get back home, I know that you don't have time now. Item number 9, it was City of Toledo ARPA from acceptance and allocation. And on page 20 and 22 is saying, right here, I got it right here. So page from 20 to 22 is showing 430,000 for the Latin Basin Prevention Navigation. And it's saying, due to the COVID pandemic, has disproportionately impacted the Latin community population and all, okay. Actually, we did research of the impact of COVID-19 on our Latino community, and it's on our website. I would like you to check it out. That's research project that we did for our Latino community on COVID. So it is on page 21 is mentioning the organizations that are receiving the funds, and it's mentioning Nuestra Gente, and it's also mentioning Bailey Center in Sofia Quintero. That is on your agenda of May 23.
Is there a question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm providing the information of how the agenda has been working since December. December 9 was the deadline for organizations to submit proposals for the Latin-based behavioral health and prevention funding. Okay? Only two organizations present the proposals on the deadline on December 9. Nuestra Gente and New Concepts.
That's correct.
Okay? So, and New Concepts, on those meeting on January 3, your agenda in January 3, is saying on page 10, 11, right here, this is 10. I will mention on page 11, as of December 9, 2022, the Mental Health Board received 2 proposals. It is initial screening of the proposal. Board staff identified that one of the applicants might not be eligible, but will require additional time to verify the organization certification. Our organization certification was verified. We are approved, we are certified as a behavioral health navigator. And then it says, due to short time frame and desire to err the site culture board staff instructed to the scoring team to score both proposals. The other organization didn't qualify because it was not classified or identified with bicultural, bilingual culture. That says here on page 11. I just wanna remind that. So this is on January. So we were the only Latino organization that submitted a proposal on December 9th deadline. A proposal that was waiting, that the board was waiting for a year. We made it, we did it. So our question also is, I'm sorry, I am my own. I printed out all the information because I would like to show it to the board what we're talking about. So here is the proposal that was received on December 9th. Nuestra Gente was the only Latino organization that presented proposal for the Latin bilingual bicultural behavioral health. Okay? So we presented on the deadline. We're the only Latino organization that presented that proposal. The allocations for the ARPA money are $430,000 that were presented to the city council. I was on that meeting. And it says here, May 1st, 23 through June 30, 25. Nuestra Gente get $10,000 on year May 23 to June 23. On year 2, July 23 to June 24, Nuestra Gente will get $60,000. In year 3, July 24 to June 25, Nuestra Gente will get $60,000, a total of $103,000. Out of those $403,000 ARPA money presented to the city. Sofia Quintero will get $10,000 from June 23 to July 23. Year 2, July 23, June 24. Sofia Quintero will get $70,000 in year 3, July 24, June 25. Sofia Quintero will get $70,000, a total of $150,000 from the budget of $430,000. Baby Center will get $10,000 on from May 23 to June 23. On year 2, Baby Center will get from July 23 to June 24, $70,000. On year 3, from July 24 to June 25, Big Center will get $70,000, a total of $150,000. So we have $430,000 that they were approved on the city council to use their ARPA funding for behavioral, for Latins-based behavioral and prevention navigation for Latinos. Another thing that I would like to mention is on the Ohio Attorney General website, the Nuestra Gente Community Projects is outdated till 22. Reporting year 2022. Total revenue 92,865 was over revenue for 2022. On our Attorney General website, Baby Center.
We've already been through this.
Current reporting year is until 21, when Nuestra Gente is to 22. The total revenue is $364,950. On Sofia Quintero Center, their reporting year is until 21, when again I say Nuestra Gente is up to date to 22. And the revenue year is $483,729. That was one of the items that were listed on our request, so to update our website on the, our information on the Attorney General office, which we are updating until 22.
Which you communicated to me.
Yeah.
Already.
And also, I went to the Attorney General's office this morning, and they didn't still update their reporting year for 22, they still 21.
But they are not listed out of compliance. Like
Yeah,
you
but
are.
I just want to mention because it was brought to our attention.
Because you were listed out of compliance.
Yeah, it was brought to our attention that we need to update our information
I
on
don't
the
know what her
website.
question is at this point.
Okay, well, I think, I think the question is what was the process that led to the recommendation of the two buckets of
Can I say
200,
one more thing?
Madam, please. The vote we had today on the two buckets of $225,000 each. I think any substantive response with respect to Nuestra Gente and anything that transpired as to why it did not get funded is something that would be better responded to in writing rather than in this forum. So if you can respond, Scott, to her initial question, which is how to understand the process whereby we got to the vote we did today, and then you can respond to the rest, anything else that needs to be responded to.
Certainly. I will, I'll take that question first. So Linda, Ms. Hara already chronicled the steps taken. We identified in the RFP process that of the two applicants that were presented, neither met the requirements of what this board had envisioned, nor met the needs that were identified within the needs assessment that we created. At that point, I turned back to the Latino Alliance and I asked them, tell me who we should be working with. The two organizations that were identified, Sophia Quintero and the Believe Center, were a product of that conversation. At that point, I then took the RFI or the RFP that was previously released, stripped out all the competitive information, and sent that document to the Believe Center and Squawk with a due date of April 30th, which was subsequently delayed to May 30th, as we continued to meet with those two organizations. So the selection of those two organizations were a product of the community, not this board. And we did not tell them how to split the money. We did not tell them what to do. We simply said, these are the things that we would like to purchase. You tell us what you would want to do. And that is where, once we got the application on the 30th, or was it 31st, Elijah? 31st, we vetted it and we brought it to you for approval because, as you know, we don't meet next month, and we wanted to get this on the table as we start to work and ready for the next school year. In relation to, I believe one of Ms. Parr's questions is why are they getting more city ARPA funds than she is, or Nuestra Gente is? We've asked those two organizations to do both navigation and prevention activities, and we're only asking Ms. Parr's group to do navigation activities.
So that's the reason.
Yes.
So does she know that?
I've told her that more than once.
Thank you, Scott. All right, if there are any further discussions or any further information that you have not distributed to that organization, you could do so in writing.
I will do that.
Is there anybody else? Richard, why don't you go next?
Just a few brief comments. County commissioners met this morning. They will designate June the 15th as Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Agencies that work with the elderly continue to receive complaints about grandparents and elderly aunts and uncles who are having their medication stolen by family members. It's something that the community needs a lot more education about. The sheltered bus stop at the corner of Ashwood and Bancroft has been removed by Cardiff. This is not a surprise. It was simply taken over by drug activity and stuff like that. It's just the latest in the long line. You want to know how bad it is there? They actually have posted a sign that shows a little stick figure, and it says no public urination. He's actually urinating. You can see the stream of urine, and there's a big red circle and a slash around it, and it gives the number in the Ohio Revised Code that prohibits public urination. So after years, they finally closed that. Over the years, they've closed a number of these. I've testified before City Council. I've talked to Cardiff. What they tell me at Cardiff is we've only got so much money in our funds. you repair these facilities once they get trashed and beaten up. And in addition to that, they're cleaned by lot industries. And those are individuals with developmental disabilities, and they're constantly asked to clean up broken glass, vomit, urine, feces, drug paraphernalia. So they do close them. Now here's my specific concern. The nearest shelter station to that is just 2 blocks south. That's at the corner of Ashland and Woodruff, right in front of Ebenezer Baptist Church. That one serves Werner Center on one side and Zepp Center on the other. If those individuals move 2 blocks south, then we'll probably see that one closed too. So what I'm asking of this board is, can we have any kind of a dialogue be part of? What do we do about sheltered bus stops that are simply taken over, vandalized and trashed repeatedly by people with either mental illness or substance abuse problems? This has been going on for years. But these shelters are so important to people with disabilities and the elderly when the rain's coming down in buckets or when it's sub-zero temperature. Something needs to be done. And the last thing, I guess it's a good thing, sort of, there's this suburb of Denver called Idaho Springs. They have just paid out a $19 million settlement to the family of a mentally ill man that was shot to death by their police department. This is one of those series. They used tasers. Tasers did not work. Didn't pull out a knife, and they shot him to death. This $19 million settlement is a record. It's going to set a precedent, and across the country, you're going to see police departments, paying more attention now because, and I was sharing this with the police department and members of the safety committee this morning. We need to pay more attention to our interaction between law enforcement and people with mental illness and substance abuse. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
I would like to have the families to speak because they are here and they've been waiting so long to have their voices here about
Is there anything new or different that they would say that you haven't? Because
no, they,
I assume, I'm perfectly understand that they have important.
We have to respect our families. They are here to support.
Well, I understand that, but if they're simply going to say the same things that you said, then we don't have time for that. We're not going to do that.
No, they speak for themselves. No.
All right. 2 minutes.
And then can you say something about the services?
3 minutes. Sorry, 3 minutes.
We on the south end, we have a lot of families that don't have no means or no place to go. Linda, she provides food for families, food for homeless people that's over there, and there's a lot of homeless people over there, and they come and we greet them and give them what they need. But she needs that place and the funds.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Do you have a translator here?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, ¿pueden decir algo como díganos agradecimiento a nuestra gente?
Can you translate for us? We do have somebody that's Linda.
She can help.
I can help.
Gracias.
No.
Mi nombre es Luisa Morales. Ante todo le quiero dar las gracias a la organización porque a través de ella fue la que recibió el apoyo.
Hold on 1 second. So her name is,
Yeah.
she wants to give thank you to the organization for the work that they've done for her so far.
Ok, porque llegué aquí a Ohio sin ropa, sin techo, sin comida, sin nada. Y gracias a la señora Linda fue la que nos dio el apoyo y hasta el momento de hoy nos está brindando a mí, a mi compañero y a las personas que estamos aquí presentes.
She came here and she didn't have any clothes, shoes, food, and she wants to thank Linda for helping her and her family and the people who are with her today.
Nos ha apoyado en el tema de todo lo que es comida, en muchas cosas porque llegamos sin agua, como ya todos saben, nosotros salimos de nuestro país sin ningún beneficio, sin nada, venimos a esta tierra a tener un nuevo futuro, pues. Ya que allá estamos cohibidos por la guerra política y todo lo que pasa en Venezuela, como ya todos saben, buscamos nuevos, como quien dice, nuevos caminos, pues.
So they came
Estamos
here,
agradecidos con ellos porque nos ha dado la oportunidad a todos.
they
a
came
todos
here
los
to have a
presentes.
better future and a better life. And Nuestra Gente has helped them to do that. And Linda especially has helped them to be able to do that. And they've helped them immensely through their transition.
All right, thank you very much.
Gracias.
Does anyone else in the audience have a comment?
My name is Manuel Zapata, and I'm involved with the summer program. I helped Linda with the soccer program. Last year we had it at Denny Thomas. This year we're going to have it at Jones School. And we have here a few of the little ones that I coach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zapata. All right, anything else?
So we just want to say that we've been established since 2008. Since 2008, we've been providing social services to too many families and Lucas County. This is just only a small group,
All right.
and funding is needed.
All right, thank you for coming down, everyone. We're now adjourned.
$50.